The movie opens in South Carolina, where a blue car speeds along a treacherous, hilly road, pursued by a helicopter. Behind the wheel is Dr. Mulligan, a renowned physicist and electronics engineer. In the back seat sits a 10-year-old boy named Daryl. They're being chased by soldiers from a secret government agency called Tascam. For a brief moment, Dr. Mulligan manages to evade the helicopter by taking cover in a dense forest. Seizing the opportunity, he quickly lets Daryl out of the car, instructing him to run toward a nearby trail. Then, in a final act of sacrifice, Dr. Mulligan deliberately drives onto an open road, drawing the helicopter's attention before speeding off a cliff into the river below. The car is completely crushed upon impact, making it nearly impossible for the soldiers to realize that Daryl had already escaped. Given Dr. Mulligan's name, he might just make a comeback too. As the helicopter scans the wreckage, an elderly couple stumbles upon Daryl and takes him to a nearby industrial town called Barkington, South Carolina. Soon after, the couple hands Daryl over to the authorities, and he is placed in a local childcare center. There, he is given a bath and put through a series of standard physical tests. During an eye exam, Daryl briefly glances at a Snellen chart before turning away and reciting every letter in perfect sequence. It becomes clear that this boy isn't ordinary. His mental abilities are far beyond normal. I mean, apparently, knowing the alphabet at age 10 is a big deal. Later, the center's lead social worker, Howie Fox, reviews Daryl's medical assessment. Physically, the boy is in perfect condition, but he appears to be suffering from severe amnesia. He has no memory of his parents or where he came from. Reassuring him, Howie promises that they will find his biological family. Until then, Daryl will have to stay in a foster home, as per state regulations. What Howie and everyone else don't know is that Daryl isn't just another missing child. He's actually an AI and advanced robotic experiment created by Tascam. His name, DARYL, stands for Data Analyzing Robot Youth Lifeform. Despite looking like a typical 10-year-old boy, his brain functions as a high-tech microcomputer, giving him extraordinary reflexes, incredible multitasking skills, and yes, the ability to recite the alphabet like a champ. Even more impressive, he can hack into and manipulate computer systems. The Daryl project was secretly funded by the military, designed to create the ultimate soldier. But Dr. Mulligan, one of the project's key scientists, had grown uneasy about its unethical objectives. That's why he fled the Tascam facility with Daryl in tow. After a few days, Howie reaches out to his close friend and neighbor, Andy Richardson, about the new kid at the center. Soon, Daryl is placed in the care of Andy and his wife, Joyce, as their foster child. The Richardsons, unable to have biological children, have been hoping to adopt, but they need to foster first. Overjoyed, they welcome Daryl into their home. As the days pass, Daryl quickly adapts to life with the Richardsons. He's friendly, helpful, and well-mannered, but the adults start to notice something unusual. His social skills are oddly limited. He doesn't understand humor or sarcasm, taking everything literally. To help him adjust, they introduce him to their neighbors, the Fox family, which includes Mrs. Elaine, their teenage daughter Sherry, and their witty young son, Tyler Turtle Fox. Turtle invites Daryl over to play a video game called Pole Position. Daryl watches for a moment, completely captivated. When he finally takes a turn, he effortlessly shatters the all-time high score on his first try. Turtle and Sherry are blown away, but chalk it up to beginner's luck. However, a few days later, Daryl starts school, where his exceptional intelligence stuns both his classmates and teachers. Back at home, Andy starts teaching Daryl how to play baseball, only to be stunned by the kid's incredible batting skills. Seeing this, Andy starts dreaming about his local baseball team, the Mohawks, finally winning the championship. He makes Daryl promise not to tell anyone about his talent because he doesn't want the boy getting recruited by rival teams. But since keeping secrets isn't something the robotic kid understands, he immediately tells his foster mother all about his amazing game. Daryl also starts learning about male attraction toward females, though he can't quite wrap his head around it. One day, Andy takes him to an ATM to withdraw some cash, but the machine displays insufficient funds due to an error in the bank's system. Without hesitation, Daryl fixes the issue himself, not only correcting the error, but also without Andy realizing, adjusting the balance to show $14,000 in his account. Later, Andy and Daryl head to the school to practice for the upcoming baseball game. Meanwhile, back home, Joyce is chatting with her friends and opens up about her mixed emotions. She admits that, in a strange way, Daryl makes her feel like she isn't needed as a mother. He does all his chores perfectly, irons his own clothes, makes his own bed, and even polishes his shoes. She jokingly admits that he's a better mom than she is. One day, Howie stops by the Richardson home with bad news. Authorities have located Daryl's biological parents. Heartbroken, but understanding, Andy and Joyce decide to cooperate and allow Daryl to reunite with them. It's clear that Daryl has grown deeply attached to his foster parents. He insists he wants to stay with them forever, but Andy gently tells him that he has to go with his real parents, who have been searching for him for months. The next morning, Daryl's parents, Ellen and Jeffrey, arrive in Barkington to take him home. Turtle is so upset about losing his friend that he can't even bring himself to say goodbye. Soon after, Ellen and Jeffrey drive Daryl to an airport where they board a private jet. But in a shocking twist, it's revealed that these two aren't actually his real parents. They're scientists from Tascam, sent to retrieve Daryl and bring him back to their research facility in Washington. During the flight, Daryl chats with the pilot while Jeffrey discusses his escape. The scientist admits that Dr. Mulligan taking Daryl was actually the best thing that could have happened, as it allowed Tascam to study how Daryl functioned in the real world, among real people. Upon arrival at the facility, the scientists immediately resume their work. Daryl's memories are restored, and he undergoes a debriefing about everything he learned while living with the Richardsons. They go over key experiences, including his choice to strike out on purpose during the baseball game, a sign that he understood the importance of making sacrifices. Another moment that stands out is his preference for chocolate ice cream over vanilla. This revelation stuns Jeffrey, as it suggests that Daryl is capable of personal preferences and, potentially, emotions. Despite this, Ellen remains skeptical. To settle the matter, Jeffrey decides to run some biochemical tests. Daryl is placed in a room full of doctors, where they begin a thorough examination of his brain. But Daryl takes control of the lab's computer and types out a message, "I'm scared." Since robots aren't supposed to experience fear, this sends shockwaves through the research team. The scene shifts to Dr. Jeffrey delivering his findings to military generals at the Pentagon. The revelation that Daryl is capable of human emotions, including fear, leads the military to declare the experiment a failure. Jeffrey is taken aback, believing that Dr. Mulligan's actions helped them learn more about Daryl than ever before. But the generals disagree. To them, a robot that can feel fear is useless to the army, so they decide to shut the project down. They also order Dr. Jeffrey to start working on a new version of Daryl, an adult model, designed to learn only what the military teaches it. This one will be fearless, technically skilled, and an unstoppable soldier. The only issue, they still plan to call it Daryl, which doesn't exactly sound intimidating. Feeling defeated, Dr. Jeffrey goes to break the news to Daryl, but by now, he has grown too attached to the kid. He doesn't have the heart to tell him. Seizing the moment, Daryl makes a request. He wants to see the Richardsons and his friend Turtle one last time before being dismantled. Surprisingly, Dr. Jeffrey agrees, believing that they deserve to say goodbye. The Richardsons, along with Turtle and his father Howie, arrive at Tascam Laboratories, where Dr. Jeffrey welcomes them and reveals the truth about Daryl. Initially, they struggle to believe what they are hearing. But when Dr. Jeffrey showcases some of Daryl's ultra-human capabilities, they are left speechless. Shortly afterward, Daryl reunites with his family and warmly embraces them, deeply moving Dr. Jeffrey. Overcome with emotion, he makes the difficult decision to free Daryl forever. After sending the family back home, Dr. Jeffrey devises a plan to smuggle Daryl out of the facility. However, his longtime colleague, Dr. Ellen, discovers the plan and immediately informs the military chief. Wasting no time, the chief arrives at the facility and orders the scientists to dismantle Daryl immediately. To ensure the task is completed, he assigns Dr. Ellen the responsibility of carrying out the destruction, which she reluctantly agrees to. Later, the military chief announces that Daryl has been terminated. Devastated and enraged, Dr. Jeffrey storms out of the facility. In a shocking twist, it turns out that Daryl is still alive. Dr. Jeffrey had secretly convinced Dr. Ellen to spare the boy's life and managed to smuggle him out in the trunk of his car. As he quietly drives away from the facility, everything seems to be going as planned until disaster strikes. The military chief stumbles upon messages between Dr. Ellen and Dr. Jeffrey on the lab's computer, realizing that Daryl is still operational. Furious, he immediately orders his men to stop Jeffrey. By the time they react, Dr. Jeffrey has already left the premises, prompting an intense car chase. Demonstrating his superhuman reflexes, Daryl takes control of the steering wheel and expertly evades the pursuing military vehicles. After successfully shaking them off, the duo spends the night at a local motel, where they change their vehicle to avoid detection. The following morning, Dr. Jeffrey plans to take Daryl to a secure location. They set out in an old truck, and everything seems to be going smoothly until they encounter a police checkpoint. Jeffrey initially manages to distract the officer and presents all necessary documentation, but just as they are about to leave, the officer catches a glimpse of Daryl in the rear window. He immediately orders Jeffrey to stop, but the doctor refuses to comply. Left with no choice, the officer fires his weapon, striking Jeffrey in the abdomen. Despite being wounded, Jeffrey manages to drive away from the checkpoint. However, he soon loses too much blood and is forced to stop near a forest. Stumbling out of the truck, he collapses in Daryl's arms and, in his final moments, passes away. Overwhelmed with grief, Daryl sheds tears for the first time in his existence. That night, Daryl sneaks into a nearby USAF airbase, hacking into their systems and triggering multiple alarms to cause a diversion. Taking advantage of the chaos, he successfully steals an advanced Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird jet. As soldiers watch helplessly, a 10-year-old boy takes off in one of the most sophisticated aircraft ever built. Once airborne, Daryl sets the autopilot and inputs the coordinates for his hometown of Barkington. He also contacts Turtle, instructing him to meet at Blue Lake with Sherry. Meanwhile, the military realizes that none of their missiles are fast enough to catch the Blackbird. Left with no alternative, they activate the aircraft's self-destruct mechanism. However, Daryl anticipates their move and devises a plan to fake his own death. Moments before the plane explodes, he ejects, but the extreme G-force knocks him unconscious. Still strapped to his seat, he plummets into Blue Lake, where the added weight causes him to sink beneath the water's surface. At the same time, Turtle and Sherry arrive at the lake, waiting anxiously for their friend. After a tense moment, Daryl's lifeless body floats to the surface. Horrified, Turtle jumps into the water and pulls his best friend ashore. He and Sherry rush Daryl to the nearest hospital, but their efforts prove futile. Showing no signs of life, Daryl is officially declared dead. The devastating news leaves both the Richardson and Fox families heartbroken, mourning their beloved boy. Turtle, however, stubbornly refuses to believe that his friend is truly gone. He insists that Daryl cannot die because he doesn't have a human brain. Unbeknownst to everyone, Dr. Ellen arrives at the hospital in secret. Finding Daryl's lifeless body, she quietly reactivates his electronic brain, restoring him back to life. Since he was officially declared dead, Tascam no longer tracks him conveniently. They never installed any GPS or tracking chip in their most advanced robotic creation. Now truly free, Daryl returns to his foster family and best friend. At the Richardson home, a grief-stricken Turtle prepares to head home, but as he steps outside, he is met by Daryl running toward him. The movie ends as the two best friends embrace, reunited at last. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to support the channel. Thank you for watching.